9:09 on the morning news. Alberta's schools and teachers are doing their best to minimize COVID-19 outbreaks, but parents need to be prepared to assist in their learning should their child be required to isolate at home. With tips and tricks on keeping kids on track while working from home, we are joined by the CEO of MindFuel, Cassy Weber. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Is this Andrew?
This is Andrew.
Hello, Andrew. Nice to speak with you.
Good to have you on the program. Excited. We'll get to some of your tips because I know as parents we could use all the help we can get if we find ourselves in this situation. But before we get there, tell us about MindFuel. What is the organization about?
Thanks so much. Well, MindFuel we're a nonprofit. We've been around for over 30 years, and our area of expertise is online learning. And so we launched our very first site, I think it was in about 2002. So we know quite a bit about the domain, and we do a lot of work within that virtual space for both teachers and parents and also students. So I'm delighted to be able to share some of the things we've learned over the years.
Well, Cassy, it's a great thing that you know because there are a lot of parents out there. This is a very new world for them, but they have made the decision to have the kids at home and do their learning that way. So give us some of those tips and tricks because you've got the background, and I think there are a lot of folks out there who can use all the help they can get.
Thanks so much, Sue. So I think a critical thing for listeners to understand is that transitioning to online learning is more than just putting the curriculum online for students. It's very important that we don't forget that very social aspect of in-classroom learning. And so there's ways to create that social connectivity or that community within the online space. And I think the most critical number one focus for parents is to set up these spaces for learning that are distraction-free. Learning is a very complex process, and it requires focus. It requires engagement. And so, a good space inside the home, the same space, doesn't matter if it's, in the living room, at a table or at the kitchen table or at a desk. It just needs to be that same space that the kids associate with doing their work. And there should be a good chair and not too much clutter. And then learning sessions. And learning sessions, depending on the age of the child, can be an hour, 2 hours. For kids that are in high school, they can go a bit longer than that. But then it's also important to have a good break. And, the break can be a walk around, go outside, glass of water. Those are a couple things. And, the mental health is also a very big issue for students. The stress of the pandemic itself, but then there's stresses with being disconnected from their peers, worrying about the health of themselves or their family. So you need to check in with your child and understand how they're feeling, if they're experiencing anxiety, and provide assurances and let them know that they're safe while they're in quarantine at home.
You mentioned a couple of things that stuck out to me, and that is with the breaks and it sounds a lot more structured than homework time traditionally. If the kids are in school and they pop home and hit the kitchen table or sit on the couch and have music in the background, the structure sounds much more rigid, might be the wrong word for it, but more in line with what they'd see in school. Is that right?
Absolutely, because we have such a distracted Gen Z, right? They're on their phones, they're on their computers, their attention spans are easily interrupted. And so, the reward is the break. So, the learning session is the work they must do, and in a way, hopefully that's engaging. If a student has low engagement, then they're not optimizing their learning. So that's how we structure it with our kids when we were at home last year. But this is also what I'm hearing from many people in industry, that the learning session it's a disciplined, focused session, and then the reward is the break. And it really depends on the age of the child in terms of what you can expect for, reasonable attention span. But it seems to be a good recipe for success, when you're at this, learn from home. How do we do it? How do we manage it? Yeah.
And Cassy, we are a bit, almost 2 months or a month and a half, a good month and a half into the learning of this new school year. So is there something we should do to kind of just check in right at this particular point before we move further forward?
I think it's important to, first of all, check in with your child's teacher and understand, make sure you really have a handle on where they're at in the curriculum, and also check in with the child in terms of how they're feeling with having to have masks on, to constantly sanitize. I know a lot of schools aren't issuing lockers this year to students, so they're the kids are carrying their books around and their boots and their coats, and a lot of those extracurriculars also are not happening this year for good reason, good cause. But these are the fun things. These are kind of the glue pieces of the school and the school experience. And so I think if we understand that our kids are really feeling an absence of all of those fun things we associate with our childhood, and then we can look for ways to temporarily provide other activities, right?
Yeah, great point.
Yeah.
And to that point, when it comes to activities, Cassy, I'm wondering, when we were in school, at least me, it was textbooks and chalkboards. Now it's all computers. And we know that the kids love their electronics when they're not at school and when they have downtime. So should we look at eliminating some of those electronics if they're spending so much time, online during the day for their studies?
I fully agree that nighttime stuff, out of school stuff or out of learning stuff should be more situated in the real world versus the virtual world. So board games, those are great activities. We've got snow now, so getting outside and playing in the snow and having fun. If the child is wanting to do some online stuff, online fun, and I know parents, we're all very busy, and you also want to send your child to an online destination that is not, about crashing and fighting and things like that. MindFuel has a couple of great sites, wonderville.org and codingville.ca. Lots of games there, education-based games. And, this is a good way for a child to experience online in an educational manner that's also fun.
And fantastic information on your website, MindFuel.ca. Thanks so much for joining us, Cassy.
Thanks so much, Sue and Andrew.
That is Cassy Weber. She's the CEO of MindFuel. And if you're a parent with kids at home, anything that we can, any little tips and tricks we can get, anything to help us through this journey for sure, I'm sure is much appreciated.